wanted to share with you just information on VDI and how optimization plays into it. So there were some good questions earlier about that. I think a lot of you may not have heard about our company, Riverbed. I was asked for a show of hands in markets that I'm not visited often. So can I just have a show of hands? How many of you have heard of Riverbed? Fair number, so about 50%, which is pretty good. So I'll talk to you about our company. Riverbed, we consider ourselves an IT infrastructure performance company. So that's a bit of a mouthful, but basically it means we want to make the most use of your infrastructure. We have appliances that help you achieve that. We are a publicly traded company, profitable, most recommended, lots of awards and lots of good things. Where's VJ? So VJ said the customer slides we show, I wanted to just impress upon him. We do have Citibank here as one of our customers, and believe it or not, HP is also a customer as well. So, but they're not represented in the slide. But the point that we wanted to make here is that in terms of industries, we have a very wide and varied audience here. So we have education, we have financial sector, we have manufacturing. So I wanted to give you an idea that this is a technology that doesn't care about the vertical that you are in and what business you're in. Market leadership, I think we all rely on some support information analysts to guide us in terms of what technology is desirable to use out there. So in terms of WAN optimization, we are a leader in our space. So being a visionary and leader in an ability to execute. Gartner has recognized us for the last 6 years to be the leader in the space. In terms of market share, we are at about 50% worldwide market share. Our next closest to us is in the 20% range. So we're quite proud of our technology. So where does Riverbed fit? I'm going to focus on optimization. So we have optimization in all areas of your network. So basically in optimization we call it a symmetric technology. So you have a device that sits at the branch and a large device that sits at the data center, and the aggregate branches that connect back to your data center. We treat those data packets to create the efficiencies in the use of those applications. So if you look at the solutions we have, in my laptop I have a mobile client which acts like an appliance inside. So when I'm working from a hotel, I used to work for another vendor, and every time I would try to collect emails and everything from my laptop, especially in areas that had low bandwidth and other issues, it would be very frustrating. I'd be like, wanting to get a presentation down or send one across. You hit enter and you'd be waiting and waiting and waiting, and it would be extremely frustrating. So now with this mobile client, anything that I send to fellow employees and corporate and so forth, it's very fast. So I don't feel the pain when I have to deal with internal environments. It's very fast. Satellite. We bought a company called Skipware. So we can optimize the satellite communication protocol, SCPS. If you look at, just as an example, if you download a file that's say 10 megs over a 600 millisecond latency environment in satellite, it can take you several minutes. With our technology and the deduplication, we see it in seconds. We also have virtual models for our product sets for the optimization. So if you are going towards consolidation and virtualization, if you don't want to put in a physical appliance, you have the option to have a virtual appliance. Stop me at any time. Sorry, I'm moving along a little fast. So if you have any questions, please do stop me. So now let's talk about desktop virtualization, right? Why are we all looking at this? What's the point of it all? So there's a promise that's being made that I'll get security, I can potentially reduce my support and maintenance costs. There's a lot of things out there. There's the trend. We have to look at all of these things. So now if you look at you know, the amount of support time that probably in your organizations, your help desk people and other support people are doing to take care of your employees in your organization, it's varying from maybe a couple hours a month to quite substantially. Maybe you have a user that just tends to not use his applications correctly. Their machines break. Maybe you have power surges in your environment, so there's failures in your components. So there are a lot of things in touching and handling that you have to do. So this is one of the things that these products can help you overcome, right? You're going to have everything protected in the back end. So now you remember, do you care about your motherboard? Yes. Do you care about the disk? More so, because that's where your data is. Now, if your data is at your branches or in people's head only, it's not going to help you. It needs to be somewhere where it's protected, where you have business continuity. So it makes very important sense to have an environment where you're taking that data back to your data center. So I think this has been covered by Joe and VJ earlier. So the main products that are out there to help you in VDI space, Citrix, VMware, and the Microsoft. Okay, so what's happening in terms of technology trends, where adoption is starting slow, but now there's a great acceleration of what's happening, right? So we are now into something like a 48 million range in terms of virtualized desktops out there. We're going to see the 100 million range very fast. So this is something that we need to really look out for. So what is stopping, right? So I think the question that came up earlier, we all wonder, okay, how is it going to affect my environment? I put on VDI, I have a 50 user branch. How much bandwidth is that person going to consume with that VDI there? Okay, right now I know what my performance is and so forth. I think the performance aspect, we as technical people sometimes don't go layers high enough because it's really productivity, right? So if you're a bank and you're processing 1,000 checks a day, you know, more money is being shifted around, wired, what have you. Would it help you and make you more money if you're doing 2,000? All those fees that you can gain from processing that much more. So these are the things that you have to think about from a transactional basis. That's what's important. How do you actually make money? So this is where we in optimization space, we have a lot of IT directors, CIOs spending a lot of time saying, my bandwidth for 512K costs me, you know, $150 a month, and I need to reduce that. But this is where we have a problem, because applications don't only care about the bandwidth and what they consume. It's about the chatter that's caused, the latency going back to the data center. There's a lot of issues with how everything works. So if you look at applications, the way they work is basically you have TCP/IP, which has its weakness. At the transport layer, packet goes out, you have to get an acknowledgement, another packet goes out, and it just continues on and on and on. So I mean, that takes a lot of time. There's a lot of latency. Then you have, that's fine at the network layer. What about the applications themselves? I think many of us understand our applications, but there are a lot of applications that are homegrown, that are made from third-party vendors, that may not tell you their secret sauce, right, of how everything works. But you know it provides you your business function. Let me give you an example. 2003 Microsoft Exchange. For that to work, it was very driven by small packet sizes. So it would thrash the Exchange server and then help you populate your mailbox and take care of it. But then Microsoft got a lot of complaints. You'd see the connection timed out, always popping up because all these connections would break because there was too much thrashing on that server. Microsoft got smarter, better, made the packets bigger. 2007, 2010, became more efficient. So there are those kind of applications. There are other applications that if they lose their connectivity to the server, you have thick clients. They will thrash towards that server because they feel like, oh, my connection is lost. And your security team will call you and say there's an attack. The server may have gone down, but it looks like an attack, and they shut down those ports for those servers, they shut down the servers, they shut down that particular end user. So there are a lot of things that you have to deal with. So this is a problem. So the application performance is very, very key. I really want to stress this more than anything else, that it's all about the applications. Okay. So Riverbed and VDI, we love VDI. Okay. We have customers today. We can save on the bandwidth consumed. We can reduce your response times in half because of the application awareness that we have. Okay. So I'm going to get down to the secret sauce that we have in the next couple of slides. And in terms of data reduction, we have a deduplication technology that's quite unique. Okay. So if you look at deduplication for storage, it's at 4K, 8K blocks, right? So we do deduplication at byte level, which is at 128 bytes. So we create references for a small packet as 128 bytes. We can represent whole files, 1 meg files, in one 16-byte reference. And then we chop that up even more granularly, so we have even more references for that particular file. But it's not, we don't really care about the file name, we care about the patterns. I'll come to that in a second. So we talked about this already. So the problem with VDI today, or not a problem, it's actually, there's a lot of, obviously all the pluses that we have with VDI, all the promises. But you have all these specific applications, right, that have to be dealt with. So in your industry, I think you might have some specific applications that can't be centralized, or if you can, then maybe the VDI as a whole solution is perfect. But then what about local applications? So the examples we've been using recently is like banks, they have check scanning or application scanning, and then they have to upload it back to the data center. Well, now that particular data has to be loaded to a portable drive or a local drive inside that branch and then pushed across, right? So that's a little hiccup, right? It's not centralized. It's being sourced from the branch. That's something different. Other industries have the same issues. So this is the thing where you have to look at one piece. Great, VDI solves the centralization, the security, the resiliency. But what about the local applications, and how do you deal with that? So a lot of VDI solutions are point products, we call it, so that's solving part of the problem. But what about all the other applications? So when I say that, it's like, okay, what about printing? What about your email? What about encrypted email? What if you want to use it as a thick client and you don't want to just use the VDI locally? What if you have a power user that leaves the data center, takes his laptop and has to plug in at the branch? So there are environments which you may have to adapt to. So this is where you need to think about these things. So this is where Riverbed is a full solution, not just a point solution, where it can help existing VDI, but also the other applications that are out there. So I said application is important. So these are the applications that we understand really, really well. The reason we understand it really, really well and what they are important applications. So you have file sharing, whether it's CIFS or whether it's Linux-based. You have emails, whether it's Exchange or Lotus. In Exchange, we can even do encrypted NAT. In file sharing, we can do signed SMB. So CIFS does SMB signing. So if you have some security requirements and you turn on your SMB signing, we can cover that. So these are weaknesses of our competitors and strong points for us. And we don't want to break the intent of your security requirements. So we focus our technology to make sure that what you intended security-wise, we keep. So we will not, so if you have SSL-based applications, as long as you give us a certificate and the key, we load it up into our appliances, and then it functions as required. A lot of other people will use self-signed certificates. They'll do some mitigation activities that may not be the original intent of your security practice. Okay. So if you look at virtual desktops, in terms of the Citrix environment, the VMware, the Windows RDP type environments, we can accelerate that up to 10 times. So that means if you have a 512K link, we can make it look like a 5 meg link. Okay, so what's the value in that? So that means you can have bandwidth deferral, okay, and possibly even bandwidth reduction. So that's very promising for you, right? But on top of that, if you look at the other applications, because of the deduplication and so forth, it gives you the speed aspect as well. So if you're looking at downloading a file from your data center, or you pushing up a file to the data center, if you have to push a 10 meg file over a 128K link, it's going to take you a very long time. With our deduplication technology, as long as we've seen it once before in the pattern, it's going to be seconds. And people find it very hard to believe, but the technology is quite ingenious. So like I said, it's pattern-based. Let me give you another example of collaborating. So if you have these files and you have to upload to the data center, you create a document, we call it a.doc, right? You now send it to the data center or to a colleague that sits in your head office. And you say, okay, let's collaborate, give me some feedback. So he sends it back to you and he makes a few changes, a couple of sentences, maybe a whole section. But now if you have this 5 meg file that's gone up and down, why do you have to send the whole thing across? Why not just process the delta? And the second thing is he's renamed it to a version 2.doc. So we don't care. So that information, because at the byte level, as I said, we go granularity is so refined to 128 bytes. So if he's got a 5 meg file and he's only changed, say 100K of it, so 4.9 is the same and the 100 has to be processed. We only have to process around that amount. So that gives you a lot of value. So now you only have to send, say, 100 and some bytes across, not the 4.9 that's remaining. So think about that offload of bandwidth that's gone in your network now. So now you're not using that amount of bandwidth.
But it requires some internal processing as well on the Riverbed level.
Of course.
So it can end up to a throughput issue with the device itself?
No. So I don't know if you, I don't understand your question when you ask them. What do you mean by that, the throughput issue?
I mean to say that, for example, it actually it makes it efficient, right? In terms of like processing the data.
Yes.
But for this efficiency, it requires some internal processing as well.
Correct.
The Riverbed itself.
Yeah. So Riverbed. So I think what's missing is I haven't told you the mechanics. There's also a hard disk inside our appliance.
Latency, basically.
So the latency we're overcoming because we understand application. So when I talked about the chattiness of TCP and these applications, right? So we have spoken to Microsoft, we have spoken to Oracle, we have spoken to a lot of these vendors. So that application chattiness is we're taking away. The latency will always be there, but we're overcoming it with the deduplication, and because we have this what we call transport streamlining and the application streamlining. These are the application and transport techniques we do. So it can overcome that issue. So all that chattiness that's happening is we're doing techniques like we'll do local acknowledgements because we know the packet's going to come, and if it doesn't come, yes, there will be a retransmit or something, but all the techniques that we do have been refined through the R&D aspect, that it's done quite well.
Typically, my question was that without Riverbed, if
yes.
any data is traveling on the network through switch through any other site, there is no device in between, right?
Right.
Okay, it is not that efficient. You have a lot of excess of data in terms of packets or something. But when you introduce Riverbed, it reduces that extra, like you can say, packets with the data. But Riverbed itself requires some sort of processing on that data, right?
Yes.
So
it's not introducing that much latency, by the way.
All right.
Okay, so now I understand your question. Sorry that I didn't understand. So the packet is going through our appliance. So all our chips and hardware that's being used to do all of this is extremely fast. So the latency addition is less than a millisecond. It's that fast. Okay. So there's no issue in terms of giving a poorer performance because it's being processed. So it's just an amazing technology, and this is where, if I go back to this slide, I didn't spend probably a lot of time here, but if you look at file sharing, we can achieve like 200 times in terms of the deduplication technology we use. We save so much, and we create so much offload on that WAN environment that you have this amount of gain. So you can make this 128K link look like it's like a 10 meg link. So it's an amazing piece of technology, and we have a lot of, if you go to YouTube, you look at Riverbed, you will find there are a lot of examples of our demos out there. And in terms of, if you go to our site, the amount of case studies that we have, there's videos, there's paper case studies, so you can have a lot of information. I have a few slides on that as well.
Thank you very much.
Did that answer? Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? So that's the deduplication technology. It's very unique to Riverbed. So remember, if you're collaborating, I don't care about the file name even, right? So like our competition, this is where they are weak at. So they look at the file name, plus they look at the protocol that's being used. So now if I sent you the file as an email attachment, but then I've saved it on my Exchange, my SharePoint portal, and send you a link, and then you're still pulling it across, we don't care what application is used, whether it's HTTP, whether it's an attachment in email, whether it's FTP. If we've seen the patterns before, we know how to deal with it. So that's another benefit. The competitors, what they have is a specific area in their hard disks specific to that protocol, or it's by file name. So they're repeating, the presence of that document over and over again. So we call our store, that storage system, a universal data store. And we don't even size it extremely high. We call it least recently used as the algorithm. So if we haven't seen a packet that we've had to use a reference to reduce the data on the network, then we have it as a candidate for removal for new data that's processed. So I've seen a lot of environments in our real world customers where we're at 100%, but there's no issues. The performance is great.